Brushtober month. Today's tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you how to do a Mary Blair inspired starry sky using my Gouache Paintbox. I'm really excited about this tutorial because Mary Blair is one of my favorite artists, and I'm going to teach you a little bit about her today. But before we get into that, I wanted to catch you up on what's been going on for Brushtober. So let me switch you down to my iPad and we'll talk about it. So far, this is the Brushtober page. You can find it at bardobrush.com/brushtober. Right here, you can find a link to our prompts page to get all the Brushtober drawing prompts. Each week this month has been themed around a different medium. So we started off with pencils. We did this really fun hedgehog in my pencil box. Last week was our ink week, and I just updated my mid-century illustrators kit with brand new brushes. I did 10 all new brushes, and it's such a fun set. I'm really excited about it. We did a little inky mid-century art tutorial. You can find that on YouTube. And then in Art Makers Club, I taught members how to make their own Procreate brushes, and it was a lot of fun, and I had some really great resources to share with our members. So if you want to learn how to make your own Procreate brushes, that's a good one to check out. And now we are in week 3, which is paint week. And this week is all about exploring the painterly style. So creating painterly blendy pieces with textured bristly brushes for fun, rich, expressive art. And it's a really fun style, and I really hope you guys get into it this week. And we have a couple tutorials to help you out. So some brush sets to explore if you're wanting to try out the painterly style in Procreate. I, of course, have my Gouache Paintbox, which we're going to be using today, but I also just came out with my brand new Playful Painters. I should have had this one open in a new tab, but I'll go ahead and open it for you guys. I just released my Playful Painters. I've been working on the set for so very, very long. I don't even know how long, but it's finally here, and they're such fun brushes. I hope you check it out. We'll share a link in the chat to the Playful Painters, but they're really fun. I've been having so much fun making this set and making art with it and doing this painterly style. So you can check those out, and on Friday, we're going to be doing a tutorial using the Playful Painters, and that's going to be Friday, October 18th at 4 p.m. We just changed the time, so if you had it in your calendar from before, make sure to note that it's now going to be at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And then, of course, today we are doing our Mary Blair inspired starry sky. So let's go ahead and jump into our tutorial for the day. So first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about Mary Blair. Let's go ahead and, we ready to go, Jeff? Okay. All right. So Mary Blair was an American artist and artist and animator. She lived from 1911 to 1978. And she's most well known for the work that she did with Walt Disney. She was a real key figure in basically like defining the visual style of animated films such as Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan. And she also designed the It's a Small World ride, which is at Disneyland, which is my favorite ride. And her style is just so she's really characterized by like bold colors and whimsical design, and it's just, her style is so unique, and she uses texture in the most amazing ways. And I think that's one of the things that made me fall in love with her work, is I absolutely love the textures and the colors, and there's just something so unique about it, and she's been an inspiration to me for such a very, very long time. In fact, the brushes that we're going to be using today are actually inspired by her. Like when I set out to design Gouache Paintbox and design the brushes in that set, I really wanted to specifically capture some of the textures that I would see in her paintings. So a lot of inspiration for those brushes comes from her artwork, and I'm excited to finally do a tutorial where we kind of explore her style, because I wanted to do this forever, but I haven't, so I'm glad that it's happening now. Let me show you some of the pieces that I'm kind of pulling inspiration from in today's work. So let's go down here, and this is a really amazing book called Magic Color Flair, The World of Mary Blair. I got this from the Walt Disney Family Museum, which is in San Francisco. So I want to show you a few pieces from here that I'm kind of drawing inspiration from. Specifically from her work doing concept art for Peter Pan. So we're doing this like starry night sky scene, and I just love the way that it's almost like it's deceptively simple, her artwork. It seems like, oh, she just does a little swash of this here and there, and like it's all because she's so skilled, but it seems so like deceivingly simple. I think that's one of the things I like about it, but I love the textures. Oops, let's go to another one. These pieces, like, so beautiful. I love all the like streaky texture in them. And then this one with the clouds and the moon, we're going to be doing something like that in today's piece. And I think I had one more bookmarked here. Oh yeah, I just wanted to show this one out for another like night sky kind of scene, but like, gosh, I feel like I could look at this book forever. It has such beautiful pieces with such great textures, and I just love it so much. So that's a little bit behind the inspiration for the Mary Blair piece, Mary Blair inspired piece that we're going to be creating today. Okay, which is this piece here. I can pull it up for you right there. So this is our little Mary Blair inspired Starry Night scene that we're going to be doing today. So we're going to be using brushes from my Gouache Paintbox. So we'll put a link to that in the chat. There should also be one down in the description if you want to check that out. So you can follow along. Make sure you have these brushes installed in your Procreate, and you can follow along with me. I did actually just release an update for this brush set just a few days ago. The brushes are now compatible with Apple Pencil Pro. So meaning if you have an Apple Pencil Pro, if you twist your brush, the brush strokes can now, you can angle them with the twist of your Apple Pencil, which is pretty cool. So if you have an Apple Pencil, you can enjoy that new feature. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're gonna go ahead and start by creating a new canvas. We're gonna tap the plus sign in the upper right. And the canvas size we're gonna be using today is 3800 by 2800 pixels. If you don't already have a template for that, you can tap this little rectangle here, go down to pixels and type in, did I say it right before? Sorry, 3800 by 2800 pixels. I'm questioning if I said it right before, but 3800 by 2800, and then tap create. But I already have one saved, so I am going to open that up. Okay, so let's go ahead and start by going into our brushes. So here I am in the Gouache Paintbox. So we're going to start by just laying down some color over the background, the color of our sky. For that, we're going to use this brush called Thick Sticky. I like this one because it gets really big, so it's good for like painting in the background and stuff like that. And then for the color, we're gonna spend a lot of time in kind of like the bluey green kind of colors. Not way over here in the very cool blues, but like a pretty warm blue. And then we're gonna start off with a color that's kind of medium, not like crazy. We don't wanna be super saturated. Probably about right here. And this brush actually builds up in opacity, so that's probably the color that we're gonna get. I'm gonna go a little bit darker. So again, we have Thick Sticky as our brush, and we have this kind of like deep teal kind of color as our background color.
Now, is this one of those gouache brushes that require a little more pressure, Lisa?
Yeah, if you do really light pressure with this one, you're gonna get very like textury kind of light marks, but if you press really heavy, it'll be really dense. A lot of the brushes in this set are like that. That way you can kind of choose what type of mark you want to make. So make sure you also have the Thick Sticky and not the Thick Sticky blender. The blender brush is just for blending and it won't make any marks really, so don't use that one. So use Thick Sticky. Okay. And then you're going to want to like zoom out your canvas. That'll make it easier to paint over the whole thing. And then we're just going to kind of go over it with lots of horizontal marks like this. And I'm lifting my brush up every so often, and you can see that if you go over the same area again, it'll get a little bit darker. This brush has a little bit of transparency, so it takes a few kind of like layers of strokes to get the color that you picked in the color picker. You don't have to color it in super perfectly. We want some of the texture to still show, but you know, we want it mostly colored in, so it should look something like that. So again, just like layering lots of horizontal strokes. Okay. All right, so this is kind of our base color for our sky. And now to get the look that we kind of see in Mary Blair's Mary Blair's artwork, we're going to be just layering in lots and lots of textures. So let's go ahead and choose a new brush now. We're gonna go up to our brushes, and the brush we're looking for now, you can find if you scroll down a little further, and that is soft gouache grain. I have 3 different kind of like gouache grain brushes, which add, I made these brushes to kind of add texture to paint that's already down, if you want to add even more texture. So soft gouache grain, and you don't have to change the color. This brush will just add texture based on the color you already have. So I'm gonna zoom out just a little bit. And with very light strokes, before I do that, let's go really big with our brush size. Go probably all the way big, all the way to 100%. So slide that slider up. And then we're just gonna do some very light strokes. Always kind of keeping horizontal. That will add to the texture that we're trying to go for. So I just did like a 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 passes across and really light pressure. If you go heavy with this brush, you'll kind of deposit more paint than the texture. So just do really light pressure and you'll get these like kind of like streaky, grainy marks. Okay, so again, that was our soft gouache grain. So got a little bit more texture, but we are gonna add even more. Let's go to our brushes and we're gonna grab the crispy gouache grain. So go ahead and choose that one now. And I'm trying to decide if I wanna, yeah, we don't need to change the color because of the way these brushes are designed. They kind of add a little bit of darkness. So you don't have to change the color and it'll kind of just keep adding a little bit of darkness. For this one, I'm just gonna add a little bit of texture in some places. So again, with light pressure, I'm just kind of going back and forth, a little bit right here, back and forth right there. Maybe I'll do a little bit over here. Just adding texture in some areas. Maybe over there. Maybe one more down there at the bottom. Just to kind of give it a little bit of texture here and there. Okay? And you can see that's the crispy gouache grain. It has a really kind of like fun, dry brush, draggy effect. Okay. Okay. Now we're gonna switch our colors, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and go up to our color picker and we're gonna layer on some lighter strokes. So we're gonna kind of go this direction in our color picker. We're gonna go lighter and a little bit less saturated. And I'm gonna go just up, maybe about that much. And I'll test it out, but I'm gonna choose the right brush. So we'll just pick that for now and then we'll adjust if we need to. I'm gonna go up to my brushes and this time we're gonna choose the Scumble Dry Brush. It's kind of a little further down above all these kind of liner brushes, Scumble Dry Brush. And now I'm gonna test out that color. Yeah, I think this is a good color. You don't want it to be like too much brighter than the background. I might go a little darker. Just kind of like subtly lighter, if that makes sense. And we're gonna do the same kind of thing and add some like little splotches of this texture. So we're gonna do very lightly, go back and forth and add some marks kind of like this. If I were doing heavy pressure, it would look like this. I'm doing very light pressure. Okay, so I'm gonna add some here, some over there, maybe some up here. There's not like a super rhyme or reason to this. I'm just kind of trying to like create little pockets of texture. Whoops. There we go. Do one down here. But all these little textures and differences really add to the look, and I really love it. So go ahead and finish up painting on your little kind of splotches with the Scumble Dry Brush in that lighter color. And once you're done with that, we're gonna create a new layer because now we're gonna start adding, we've pretty much done with the sky, so we're gonna start adding our like moon and clouds and things like that. So let's go up to our layers and we're gonna tap the plus sign to create a new layer. So we've got our sky layer and now we've got a new layer right above that. And we're gonna go over to our brushes and we're gonna find Dry Supreme. This is one of my favorite brushes from the set. It's like, this is the one I was really trying to capture that like dry brush effect you see in like Mary's work a lot. So go ahead and choose that Dry Supreme brush. And then over for our colors, we're gonna choose a really, really, really light yellow. So we're gonna kind of be up here in sort of a warmer yellow right there. And then something like really light. So kind of like go move this one all the way to the top, but then go even closer to white. So it's like an almost white yellow, something like that. And we're gonna draw our moon. So when we draw the moon, we're gonna, let me go a little bit bigger with my brush size. All the way big with the brush size. And I'm gonna very lightly paint in a circular shape like this so I can still see all that texture. I'm gonna do it one more time. Okay, so very light textured circular shape like this. So it should look something like that. And then I'm gonna zoom in here. We're gonna maybe go a little smaller with the brush size, and I'm gonna paint in most of it like to be more solid so that we just kind of have like a textured edge to it. So it should look something like this in the end. So we kind of did light pressure to show that texture and now heavier pressure to kind of fill in the middle like that. Okay, and again, that was with our Dry Supreme brush. Okay, so this is to kind of give it a little bit of a glowing effect, to have that kind of like lighter texture around the edges, but we're going to enhance that glowing effect even more with another really textured brush. So we're going to go up to our brushes now, and the brush we're going to choose is that, where is it? Scumble Dry Brush. So go ahead and choose Scumble Dry Brush again. And we still have that same really, really light yellow. And now we're gonna very lightly just add some marks kind of around the outside of it, like this. I'm going around very lightly in like a circle around it. Until you get kind of the amount of glow that you want. Again, very lightly. So it should look something like this. Okay, there we go. Okay. So that's our moon. You can zoom out and you can see how glowy it's starting to look. And now that we've done our moon, we're going to move on to the clouds. And we're going to do our clouds on a new layer. So you're going to go up to your layers. You're going to tap the plus sign to create a new layer. This layer should be above your moon. And for the clouds, we're going to pick a different brush. We're going to go to our brushes and we're going to choose the Rocky Dry Brush. It's actually right above the Scumble brush. Okay, Rocky Dry Brush. And then for the color of the clouds, I'm actually going to start by sampling one of this kind of like middle, you know, the sky color that we did. So I'm going to sample that. And then the color of the clouds are going to be like a really, really dark version of that color. So we're going to go this way in our color picker. Not all the way to black. We don't want all the way black. Oops, let me start over. Okay, so something like that. Maybe a little bluer even. There we go. So it looks a little like a dark bluish gray color. Okay, and now for the clouds, let me show you in our reference really quick. So the clouds are a lot of, I'm specifically like looking at these clouds. There are a lot of like really dry brush texture sort of in this kind of cloud shape. So we're gonna try and do that. And you can see there's like a bit of a darker than the sky color. We've got this almost blackish color and then like a little bit of a highlight caused by the moon itself. So that's kind of what we're going for with these clouds. So we're going to do 3 little clouds around our moon. I'm going to start with this top one. So I'm just going to kind of go back and forth like this. Kind of create this dry brush effect. And then shorter strokes up here to kind of make it more of a cloud shape. You can do whatever kind of shapes you want to do for your clouds. You can also do some kind of like circular kind of motions if you want them to look a little bit more, you know, bubbly. That's up to you. Okay, so there's one cloud. And I got a little dust on my thing. Okay. And then we'll do another one kind of like down in front of the moon a little bit. So again, kind of back and forth motion like this. And again, not super heavy pressure. If I was going really heavy pressure, it'd look more like that, but we want to see that texture. So we're gonna do light pressure. Shorter strokes on top to kind of make that area smaller. We'll make that one stick out. You could do little bubbly marks if you want. Whatever cloud shape you want to do. There's another cloud. And then we'll do one more cloud kind of in between, overlapping the moon here. And this one can kind of like go off the edge of the canvas. So again, back and forth. Kind of creating the shape of the cloud. Okay. So that's going to be kind of our first layer for these clouds. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit of extra texture to these clouds because when you use this rocky dry brush, it kind of, if you like fill it in all the way, it can start to look a little flat. So I like to add a little bit of texture to it. So we're going to use, sorry, this crooked cloud's bugging me. I'm going to rotate it. There we go. It's the joy of digital artwork is you can like just move things if you need to. Couldn't do that with paint. Okay, so we're gonna add a little bit of texture to these. So in your layers, we have our layers with the clouds. We're gonna turn on alpha lock on that layer, and that's gonna let us just add some texture inside the clouds. So we're gonna take, you can do it 2 ways. Take 2 fingers and swipe to the right on that layer. You'll see a checkerboard. Or you can tap the layer and choose alpha lock from the menu. You just wanna make sure you see that checkerboard. And then let's use one of those grain brushes. We'll use the soft gouache grain in the same color. We don't need to change colors. So soft gouache grain, we have alpha lock on, and then maybe a little smaller with my brush. I'm at like 40%. And I'm just gonna do a couple strokes very lightly over these clouds. And it's really subtle. You probably can't see it on camera, but you might see it on your iPad. Just adds just a little bit of subtle texture to those clouds. Okay. All right. So we've added a little texture. Now we're going to add some highlights because we saw lots of colors in those clouds. So we're going to turn off alpha lock now so we can add to our shapes instead of just drawing within our shapes. So we'll take 2 fingers and swipe to the right, or you can tap it and uncheck alpha lock. Just make sure that checkerboard is gone. And let's go back to our rocky dry brush, the one that we used to paint the clouds. And for the color, we're gonna go lighter. So we're gonna go kind of up this way. I want it to kind of be a little bit lighter than the background so we can actually kind of see it. I always like to do a little swatch to kind of see how the color looks. So these highlights, we're gonna put them kind of on the bottom of this top cloud because the light from the moon is going this way. So I'm just gonna kind of draw some strokes kind of along the bottom like this. Again, it's very like abstract, not precise. So there's a little bit of highlight on the bottom of that cloud. And then on this one, we'll add a little highlight to the top of the cloud because the moonlight's going this way. So again, it's pretty light pressure.
Is that the moonlight's milky glow?
That is from a book we used to read to our oldest, who's now almost 11. It was his favorite. It was about the Golden Gate Bridge. In moonlight's milky glow. So there's a little bit of highlight on that one. And then on this one, we'll kind of do it kind of along the side a little bit. There we go. You can add, see how I added this one kind of like randomly off to the side. Imagine if there's like a little puff of cloud and there's a highlight kind of catching that puff of the cloud. That's what's going on right there in my brain. That's what's happening. Okay. So we've got some highlights on our clouds. The other thing that I noticed in her artwork was there was a little bit of like darker color kind of behind the cloud. She probably painted that first and then this on top, but we're doing it digitally so we can kind of do it in reverse if we want. Let's go up to our layers and we're gonna tap the plus sign to create a new layer. And this layer is gonna go under the cloud layer because we want this color to be under our clouds. So it should be between the clouds and the moon. Okay. And then we're gonna sample our background sky color. Not this light color, but like the one that was kind of like in the background. And then just go a little this way, darker and more saturated. Something like that. And then we're just gonna add a little bit of this darker color kind of around the cloud and sort of like peeking out behind it. You can even use it to kind of like paint away some of the moon, almost like there's some cloud in front of the moon. Up to you. So this is, again, another little subtle thing that you probably can't even see on camera, but I can see it on my iPad screen. Look at that. Kind of like, I like this trailing off a little bit. Yeah, nice. Okay. So we've got these really cool textury clouds. That's kind of it for the cloud portion. The next part of this drawing is to add something else to kind of create a scene out of this so it's not just a sky. And I thought we could do a really simple little kind of hilltop with a house on top, and then we're gonna add some fun little magical whimsical swoopies at the end. So let's go ahead and do our little hillside. So we can actually reuse the same layers to do this. I'm actually gonna use the layer with the clouds. So you can go ahead and choose the layer with the clouds. For me, that's the top layer. And then let's choose a different brush. We're gonna do Dry Supreme. And then for the color, we're gonna go really deep and dark, almost black, but not black all the way. Something like that. Looks good. Fairly similar to the cloud color, actually. Okay, and then zoom out a little bit so you can see the edges of your Procreate interface. And then you're just gonna use this brush to kind of draw like an arch over the whole thing like that and color it in. Okay. Just make sure it's all solidly colored in like that. My brush size was at 45% for that. Okay, so there's our little hill. And now we're gonna add a little texture to our hill. And we're gonna do the same method we did for the clouds where we turn on alpha lock. So let's go up to our layers and I can do the 2-finger swipe. Swipe to the right, turn on alpha lock. And for the texture, let's add let's go to crispy gouache grain. Go ahead and choose crispy gouache grain for this one. This one has probably the most texture out of all of them. Actually, dotty gouache is a really fun one, but it's more dotty. So anyways, my brush size is almost all the way up. And I'm just gonna like paint on this texture. You'll notice it'll kind of go a little bit darker than the color we've selected. Just looks great. That's what I want. So should have this kind of like dark texture all over. And then we're gonna paint on a little bit of light texture, and that kind of we could imagine maybe it's some glow from the moon or something like that. So Let's go kind of lighter. Maybe we'll go up this way. Try that out. That's probably too light, so I'm gonna go a little darker. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. So let's just do on kind of one side, just a few light strokes with this same crispy gouache grain, just to kind of give the hill a little bit of a highlight on one side, like that. Okay, you doing good, Jeff?
Doing great so far.
Awesome. Okay, so that's it for our hill. Now we get to do our little house. So we're gonna go back to our layers and we'll reuse the same layer that we did, the like kind of this dark blue behind the clouds. So you can select that layer or you can create a new layer as long as it's behind the hill. So it should be like under the hill layer. And let's go to our brushes, and I'm gonna do the house using one of these liner brushes. I have quite a few liner brushes in this set, and these are meant for doing line work and details and things like that, so it'll be good for our little house. I'm gonna do the fine grain liner. This one has a nice textured edge, so I think it'll match kind of some of the other textures we're doing here. And then for the color, we're gonna go pretty dark, but not all the way black. Something like the background, you know, the hill color is probably a good place to start. Okay, and now we're gonna draw our little house. So you can do your house however you like, but I'm gonna do like a really simple one. So I'm gonna start by drawing 2 lines like that, and then a third one that's like a little bit further away. So I'm gonna go a little bit smaller with my house. There we go. So something like that. This is gonna be the front of the house, and we're gonna add a little roof shape to it, kind of like this. And then go back kind of past this last line here. So it kind of like sticks out. And then we're gonna draw a parallel line to this one here to make our little house shape. And then here where this line kind of sticks out, you're gonna draw a line this way. Okay? Clean up any little spots there. And then you're actually gonna color the whole thing in. So just go ahead and color it all in. Okay. So we should have kind of a silhouette of a house. Something that looks like this. Okay. Now we're gonna use Alpha Lock to kind of shade the roof and the side of the house to make it look like it's 3D and not just like an arrow with the top cut off. Let's go to our layers, and we're gonna use Alpha Lock. So we're gonna swipe with 2 fingers to the right, or you can tap and choose Alpha Lock. Just make sure that checkerboard is on. And now we're gonna choose black. So go all the way black. That's why it was important to not choose super black color before, because now we are gonna use black. And then we're gonna basically be coloring in one side of our house here. So this part gets a little tricky because you kind of have to imagine everything we just colored in. Imagine those lines are still there. So we're gonna draw a line kind of parallel to this. And then another, so we're kind of like leaving this edge of the roof visible, if that makes sense. And then the next line, sorry, I'm turning my thing, should be parallel to this one. Something like that. And then we're going to, make sure we're doing it right. We're gonna go straight down from there. So it should look something like that. And then we're just gonna color all that in. So this is kind of like the shadowy side of the house. And then we're also right here underneath this line, so it kind of juts in right there. We're gonna draw a line back like that. That's kind of like the shadow cast by the roof line. Okay, so it should look something like that. Got like kind of a little bit of a shadow on one side and underneath the roof. Okay. Now we're going to add a little bit of shading to the roof. The roof is going to be the lightest part because the light's hitting that first. So we're going to sample this color, like the main kind of color that we used to draw the house, and then go a little bit lighter. So see how that's a little bit lighter? And now we're going to shade in this side. So it's going to kind of look something like this. All right, so this is gonna be the roof, and we'll color that in. You guys with me on this? I feel like the house is the trickiest part of the whole thing. Everything is like, put some texture, make a shape that doesn't have to look like much. This house is the trickiest part, I think. Let me clean this up there. Okay. So now we're starting to see kind of the shape of the house come back. Let's go ahead and choose our black color, this dark color, and add some little lines to the roof to give it like shingles sort of. So we're gonna choose this Dry Supreme one-sided. So this is a version of Dry Supreme, but it's only one side, so you get like one hard edge and the rest is like that soft textured edge. So you can see what that looks like. See how it's like hard on one edge and soft on the other. And I'm gonna actually, depending on what direction you draw, so if I draw this way, the texture goes that way. If I draw this way, the texture goes that way. I'm gonna draw my lines this way so that the soft side is down. So just add some kind of lines to look kind of like, you know, shingles. We're not getting too super detailed with that. So there's our little house. You can zoom out and you can start to see it a little bit better. I was gonna add a chimney. I totally forgot. I'll add that at the end. Don't worry about that. Let's go ahead and just add some windows and then we'll be done with this. So you can choose like a yellow, but kind of like a deep, dark yellow. Kind of in the middle, like that. Is it moving? And then we can go back to that fine grain liner and then just do a couple windows. I'm gonna go smaller with my brush size. It makes it a little easier to control. So we'll add a couple windows on there. You can add a couple windows on this side, whatever you want. Okay. And then if you want to add a little door on this black side, you can actually just sample this house color, so kind of like the base color that we did, and just add a little door like that. Keep it super simple. When you zoom out, you know, this is a really small detail, so it doesn't have to be crazy detailed. And if you want to add a chimney, I forgot, you can turn off alpha lock. Just swipe to the right with 2 fingers and just use this roof color, and then you could just add a chimney, or maybe the darker color would look better. I meant to add that in the beginning, but I forgot. There we go. We'll just draw it on top. Great. A little chimney.
How does the Dry Supreme liner work?
So this Dry Supreme liner, let me just make a new layer and do one white or something. So you can see that it's really hard edged on one side and really textury on one side. And so it's meant to be, you can control which side has the texture and which side has the hard line based on the direction of the stroke. So if I go this way, like that way to the right, you can have the hard edge on the bottom. If I were to draw my line this way, you can see I have the hard edge on the top and then the soft is on the bottom. So whichever way you want the texture to go, you can control it by the direction of your stroke. Good question. My house is crooked. I'm gonna select it, and sometimes when you're zoomed in, you can't tell if things are crooked, but that's why Procreate is awesome, because we can just fix it. Okay, so we've got our cute little house. Our last final detail is to add some really fun, like whimsical swooshy things. This is the Disney magic, I guess. Just some fun little swooshes. It could just be for whatever. So let's go ahead and just create a new layer above everything else. We'll put this on its own layer. So create a new layer. And then for the color, we're actually going to choose, here, let's start with our background sky color and work from there. That's always a good idea, especially in a piece like this where all the colors are very related. Just like pick the color from the canvas and then adjust instead of just like picking one from your brain. And then we're going to go lighter and more gray. Not super saturated. We don't want it to be like that. It's like almost like a light gray. I might even go a little cooler with my color, so that would be like closer to purple. I don't know. That's pretty. Okay, let's do that. And then the brush that we're going to use two brushes to do this effect. The first one is the Dry Supreme, so go ahead and choose Dry Supreme. And then for the brush size, I'm going to start out a little smaller. I'm at like 30%. So we're going to have this kind of like swoosh that kind of comes around like this. So we're going to just kind of draw these. I'm using, here, this is a good practice with a brush like this or to get this effect, pressure practice. So light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, and you get these kind of like tapered marks, light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. So that's kind of what I'm doing when I create these like curving, swoopy kind of marks, is that light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. So that's what we're going for. Not crazy heavy pressure either. So, okay, I'm gonna imagine it kind of like coming around, going around, and maybe it circles around again, but now I'm getting a little bit bigger with my brush size, like that. Okay, so I'm just kind of like looping around, light pressure, heavy pressure, a few little random strokes like that. And then I'm gonna kind of come and swoop it around like that, very lightly. Doesn't have, so if you were like to imagine the line continues, it's kind of swooping around, but it's like broken. I'm gonna do this one again. Sometimes it takes a little bit of redoing it to get the kind of swoops that you want to get. Okay, so there's kind of our first layer of swoopiness. We're going to use another brush to kind of add even more texture to this. So I'm going to go to my brushes and we're going to do that Scumble dry brush. Love that one. And we're going to use this to kind of layer on some texture kind of over the top of these. So my brush right now is at 72%. I'm going to try that. I'm just going to kind of lightly add some texture to kind of continue the swoops around, like, if that makes sense. So I'm just kind of lightly drawing those in. Maybe there it's a little bit darker, or like heavier, I mean, like more texture, because I use more pressure. Ooh, I love that. I just did like a whew, and it got really nice and enhanced the swoopiness. So I'm just kind of like, you know, using pretty light pressure and just kind of following these curves that I've kind of already defined. And so you can add however much of this you want to kind of like enhance the effect. But I think that looks pretty good. These can also be considered leading lines because they kind of like direct your eye around the canvas. So they kind of, your eye's gonna go here first because that's the brightest spot on this like dark kind of composition. And now these lines are guiding us down to the house. And maybe there's something magical happening in there and we don't know. You can imagine things. What brush are you using again? I just did this kind of like lighter texture using the Scumble dry brush. And right before that, I did Dry Supreme for these kind of like more dense marks here. And now we're just gonna add one final little detail, because what are some magical swoops without a little bit of sparkliness? So I'm gonna go down to find the Detail Liner brush. So go ahead and choose Detail Liner. And now you get to add a couple little sparkle stars. like that. My brush size is 37%. And again, I'm doing that like light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure to get these kind of like tapered marks. But it's not super heavy. Again, if I went really heavy, it'd be really big. So I'm just kind of like doing like whew, very gestural kind of marks on that. So I'll add a little star there, maybe a little plus star right there, a little kind of three line star, wherever you want. You think you need some little magical touch. And then you can also add some little dots like that, just here and there. You could also add dots like stars to the sky if you wanted, but I think just keeping them localized around the swoopy will add more emphasis to it. Maybe I'll do one more little sparkle star there. And your dots can be of varying size. You don't have to do them all the same size. There, I think that's pretty good. So there is our final little magical sky scene. I think it's a really fun way to explore texture. That's kind of what I really wanted to get out of this tutorial, is to really explore texture in fun ways, like layered textures, like add a little bit here, a little bit there, and kind of see how, you know, combining all those together kind of creates this scene. It's very like, what's the word? I don't know. Dynamic, that's not the word. I have a word in my brain, but my brain's not remembering what that word is. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today, and I hope you check out more of Mary Blair's work, honestly, because I think she's just so inspirational. And if you're anything like me and you love color and texture and Disney, you will probably love her work as well. So if you're sharing your work to Instagram, I'd love to see it. So you can use, for Brushtober, we have Bardo Brushtober is our hashtag. Of course, you can also use hashtag Bardo Brush. You can tag me, Lisa Bardo, or Bardo Brush, of course. And yeah, I can't wait to see your beautiful starry skies and all of their magical, wonderful details. Thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, happy art.